by our house epidemiologist. He is with the University of Ottawa. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us, Raywat Deonandan.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Doing very well, and you're hearing that we're tying that dubious record of 40 cases that we also had not since April 2nd. So naturally, Manitobans a little bit more on edge. We know that there's a large cluster in Manitoba's second largest city, which is Brandon, and 39 of those cases out in that Brandon cluster are at the Maple Leaf plant. And early on, the experts were saying it looks like these employees were getting it out in the community, and it just so happens that they work there. But when you have now 39 people at one workplace who have impacted, no matter where they got it from, would it be wise to maybe shut that facility down? After all, there's over 2,000 people that work there.
It might be too early to shut it down, depending upon whether or not additional people are getting it from others that are in the plant, because one assumes at this point the infected people have been removed and are quarantining. So some additional public health measures in the plant, I think, are warranted, but it might be early to shut it down entirely. But again, it depends on what additional data public health officials have about the state of transmission of that community.
So far, the public health seems very satisfied that the company has stepped up measures, sent more than the number of employees home that they had to as part of an abundance of caution. But now we're also hearing that the company is working with the city of Brandon to make sure everyone there has masks. And I think you will think that that is a very good idea.
It's a fantastic idea. I'm surprised they hadn't implemented that earlier. It seems like the obvious thing to do once the numbers start to spike. Like, Manitoba has had it pretty good during this epidemic, and it's distressing to see that you're in a bit of a crisis right now because you had a great baseline. And I think it's incumbent upon everybody to do whatever it takes to drive those numbers down as quickly as you can before the school openings start. That's the goal. It has to be the goal.
You talk about additional measures, and I think it's either open or closed, but there are other tools in the toolbox, are there not?
There's additional spacing. There's staggering of work schedules. There's distancing of people in the facility. There's new aerosol transmission reduction strategies like new filters and air purification things, leaving windows open. All these additional things we can do to minimize the risk further.
And one wonders, though, if we're actually seeing evidence of it being used across the country. From your perch in Ottawa, what are you seeing?
I see across the country things are trending in a good direction with a few exceptions. Obviously, Manitoba, Saskatchewan have an uptick, which is distressing. BC as well. Ontario and Quebec, strangely, are going in the right direction, even though our numbers are high. So it's a handful of places around the country that seem to be veering in the wrong direction. But again, this thing is like a car on a slippery road. Any other day, the direction seems to change. So we have to be wary all the time. And I'm glad that the Manitoba officials have figured out that this is due in large part to younger people over socializing. That gives us a target for our messaging and our strategies. But again, all of this comes down to human behavior, and we have it in our power to control all of this. It's simply a matter of restricting our desires and our impulses.
Dr. Brent Roussin will join us live after the 5:30 news. With us on 680 CJOB from the University of Ottawa is epidemiologist Raywat Deonandan.
Do you think that some of the messaging has become white noise for Canadians? Because we're seeing BC's premier coming out today and asking people like Ryan Reynolds and Seth Rogen to reach out, particularly to the young people, to get the message out, because quite frankly, they're going to listen to people like that rather than the premier. But I'm wondering if Dr. Tam and Dr. Roussin and all of the premiers is, like I said, just white noise, and we need to change it up to kind of snap us back into line, if you will.
Yes, COVID fatigue is a real thing, and the fatigue of messaging is a real thing. No one likes to be scolded at for months on end, as we have all been. So I'm a fan of talking about the carrot and the stick. The stick is the scolding, reminding us that we're being bad by not distancing enough. What's the carrot? What's the incentive? We have to figure that out, particularly for young people. What do they get out of this? I don't know yet. I'd like to think that there's a narrative around heroism and protecting the vulnerable amongst us that will appeal to some people. But we need new techniques, obviously, and if anyone's got some ideas, I'd love to hear them.
Talk about getting ready for school here and preparing as a family, because in many jurisdictions it's going to be mask up, mandatory. Here it's strongly recommended. What's your advice in the weeks ahead as we prepare for those early September openings?
Remember that masks are to protect other people, so they really only have an impact if the majority of people are using them, particularly in a school environment. So when they're just being encouraged and not mandatory, I'm concerned that not enough people will use them. But you have the choice, use them. Masks are for the protection of others. To protect yourself, I recommend layering on a face shield on top of the mask. That controls the incidence of virus on your eyes, and it adds just a little bit of extra protection to keep you safe. And I hope that teachers are looking into keeping the windows open as long as they can, as weather permits. And I hope the school boards are looking into air purification systems, better filtration systems on the HVAC for those very few but significant number of cases that might result from aerosol transmission. I'm really sympathetic for parents who have to choose right now, and it's a difficult choice to make. But I think, again, we have to remember the single biggest, safest way of keeping schools safe is to drive the community caseload down, which is why getting that message across now is so critical.
So moving forward in the days and weeks ahead, we're hearing from Dr. Tam saying, listen, we're going to be mixing in with the seasonal flu that always happens, and we are anticipating that the fall and winter could get pretty rough if we, as a collective society, don't do something now. Agree?
Well, yes.
Dr. Deonandan joining us here live on 680 CJOB. Our hookup from Ottawa has ended, so Julie will continue with that, and a reminder that we will have Dr. Brent Rusin following the 5:30 news.